What you were about to see actually happened. The only difference will be that when the Indians speak, they will speak in our language so that you can understand them.
My grandmother made the best cornbread. Rich and moist, savory, yet sweetened slightly with the sap of the maple trees. Now that I'm old enough, she's shown me how to make my own cornbread, but mine never tastes quite as good as hers. Always too sweet, always too dry. I love spending time with my grandmother because she speaks to me in Iroquois and never makes me practice my English and tells me stories about our ancestors who traveled south from the Great Lakes long before the white men arrived. She calls me Little Fawn. Every Sunday morning, my mother forces me into an ugly dress that itches my neck and drags me to church. They speak English at church. White men often come to talk to my father, Chief Black Hawk. They call me Ailey. They wear ugly clothes and smell bad and are rude to my mother. I speak to them in English and they smile at me and pat my hair. It is impossible to say where I belong. As more and more of my family moved further and further south into South Carolina and Georgia, my mother and siblings head deeper into the mountains. I help my mother and sister farm squash and corn and beets. My brothers fish and hunt. I miss my friends and family who were forced to leave when our land was given to the white men. It is lonely in the mountains, but my mother says it is safer here for us than in the valley. We don't belong on this land anymore. I don't know how long we will be able to stay here before we are also forced into Georgia. I don't want to leave. In the morning, during the sunrise, I stand on the cliff and watch the cows grazing in the valley. The tops of the mountains disappear into the fog and the world seems so small. I wonder if the world feels larger in Georgia. Lorenzo Del Cole is a scoundrel. He drinks all day, he cusses, and he rarely bathes. He rants and raves about his poorly formed theories and conspiracies until he eventually succumbs to a heavy alcohol-fueled stupor. He is a vile man, but he offered me his hand in marriage. His grandfather was a Puritan who traveled to America from England to spread the word of God. Lorenzo is a true American, and marrying Lorenzo will save my family. We Cherokees have made a large attempt to adopt many of the European cultures. We speak English, we attend the same church, we go to school, we even have our own newspaper, but still I hear shouts of squaw when walking down the street. Though my family has managed to remain relatively north in Tennessee, we will not be able to stay for long as tensions are rising against us in the area. Last week I was turned away from the local convenience store. We will not be able to live like this. Lorenzo is an abhorrent man, but he has offered to take in my mother and my young sister Narcissa as well, saving us from migrating south. It is important to bite my tongue around my new American family. Sometimes I bite it so hard I taste the copper of blood in my mouth. But I must remember that my mother, my sister, and I are safe. So many of my people have not been so lucky. After President Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, my people were forced from their homes at bayonet point. The Cherokee were among the last people to be moved, as many white missionaries were using us as an example of how the Aboriginal people could become civilized and integrated members of American society. In the end, however, they were forced from their homes along the perilous trip to Oklahoma. As many as 6,000 of my people have died already, walking on foot along the Trail of Tears. Because of my marriage to Lorenzo, I was allowed to stay in the East in our humble home in Virginia. Lorenzo was gracious enough to take in my mother and my sister as well. It is probably his Christian guilt for spending so much time with his mistress in Buchanan County. He still does not know that I know about her, but her son Andrew followed him on the train one day and told me about his family there. It seems so insignificant in comparison to the grief I feel for the thousands of my family who are lost along the road to the west.